Henry Ford, Benjamin Franklin. You can look up all these quotes of all these people, famous people that talk about other lives. Just look up quotes by people about reincarnation and you'll find them. I tell people we're not alone. We have great thinkers that were saying the same thing.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. I'm excited to have Karen Willis on the show today to talk about one of my favorite topics, past lives. I'll be asking Karen if she can show us how, using hypnotherapy, she accesses this information for her clients. Our conversation will surely be interesting and fun. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Hi, Karen. Welcome. Welcome. I'm so delighted to have you.
Well, thank you for having me, really.
You bet. We get to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is past lives. And I think it is one of the most fun parts of woo-woo out there. And so I love that you're a past life girl and a past life expert. So I have lots of questions for you.
Okay.
Let's just go ahead and get started. What led you to focus your career on past lives?
Well, this is a long, lengthy story.
Okay, give me the cliff notes.
Okay. The first thing that happened to me was I had no knowledge of or belief system in reincarnation. Okay. And so in the 80s, I was watching a program, about different people and their problems and things. So I ordered a book at the local library and they gave me another book and it had my name written on it. And so I took the book and it was all about reincarnation and Edgar Cayce. You know about Edgar Cayce, right?
Please tell those who are listening that aren't familiar with Edgar Cayce.
Edgar Cayce was called the sleeping prophet, and he would go into a trance state. He didn't believe in reincarnation at first, but it kept coming through. He would tell people how the past life affected the current life, kind of like what I do, and if you gained or lost in the soul of that time frame. So he's really one of the pioneers of reincarnation, and he was from Kentucky, and he read the Bible every day. So you can't make this up. And then he just had like 16,000 readings, I think, and it's at the ARE in Virginia Beach, and you can go there or join the ARE, and he's just an amazing person. He was the first one that talked about thoughts are things. And he talked about, our lessons that we're here for, kind of what we talk about today, about past lives, that we're here to learn lessons, right? So anyway, it kind of changed my life. I couldn't blame anybody else in my family for my life. I had to take responsibility as a soul, and it gave me great strength. And so then I kind of went into teaching. I was a special ed teacher for 15 years, and my guides, I don't know if you believe in guides, but my guides told me that I was supposed to be doing this work. And so I started doing this work, and I just listen. I tell everybody to listen to that inner voice or that inner knowing, because it leads you to where you need to be. So I love what I do, and I see a lot of people who are healed from it, because that's the main reason I do this. It's not important who we were, it's what we brought with us in this life, right?
I agree. Well said. Well said. Who do you think left the book for you with your name on it?
I don't know. It was so weird. I mean, you can't make that up. It's, and a lot of people said I wouldn't have taken the book. And I'm like, well, I just remember saying I must read this book for some reason, I think. So I just took it. I think Spirit did, because Spirit has shown me different things throughout my life, just like the end of my teaching career, and that I was supposed to do this work, and my book as well. That was told to me to do. Very important.
I heard it was your guardian angel.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I heard it
my
was your
guardian
guardian angel. Do you have a name for your guardian angel? Because I heard one.
Well, no, tell me. What is it?
Matthew.
Matthew.
And spirits don't have a gender, but
No.
they don't mind if we equate a gender with a name just because it helps us understand things from a human
Right.
perspective. But I got your
Right.
guardian angel left it
Oh.
for you. You were led, girl. Holy
Yes.
Moses.
Yes,
Yes.
I
Big
was
time.
led.
What did your family think when you started doing this stuff? Did they think you'd lost your mind?
My husband was afraid I'd change drastically, which I kind of have, but he's accepted it. It was little by little, whatever. And most people in my family just think I'm a little crazy, I guess, but they're accepting most of it. A lot of them don't believe in it. Especially my daughter-in-law, that's another story. I'm not going into that, but she's not real happy with my work. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because they're afraid. They're afraid
yes.
when they
yeah. She's very religious, so I'm like so far away from that kind of religion that she believes in. So, no, but I don't care anymore. I don't know about you, but I just don't care. I mean, I see how it helps people, and to me, that's the most important thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody say something to me about, oh, you don't need to be communicating with spirits because that's evil or that's whatever. And they're usually very religious, using that in air quotes. And so you may want to try this on her. I don't know. See if you even want to go there. I'll say, well, I understand. Do you pray? And I'll say, yeah, I pray all the time. And I'll say, great. Do you get your prayers answered? Yeah, I do. I say, well, to whom are you praying? God, Jesus, Buddha, whomever. And I'll say, oh, okay. So are they sitting next to you on your couch in your living room while you're talking to them? And they'll say no. And I'll say, oh, so you're talking to a spirit. And you can just see the wheels in their heads start to turn. And then it kind of softens it a little bit. That's been my experience. So you may want to try that on her. She gives you a hard time. Otherwise, you're wise just to go, okay, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
I don't need to, I don't feel the need to convince you.
It's not up to me to judge, but they tend to judge a lot. So it's okay. That's where they are. And my mother is a little more open to it because she heard my recording and I was a little child and I sounded like a little child. And that kind of like made her think. She's not 100%, but she's more open to it. And she was excited about the book too. So
my family, when I first started doing this woo-woo stuff, they didn't buy any of it. And then I started nailing stuff about what they had going on or whatever. And so one of my favorite stories is my older brother, Jay, whom I dearly love. One day he had a situation going on and he called me up and he said, do your thing. I said, okay. So you'll probably hear that from your family members eventually. Do your thing, Karen. Oh, gosh. Okay. So do we all have past lives? And if we do, how does it work?
I think it depends on the soul. We choose our lives before we come. We have a contract with those people in our lives. And a lot of people have difficulty with that, especially if they have a lot on their plate. A lot of my clients say, why would I choose this life? And I said, you have to look at what you're learning from it. What did you learn from it? I tell people I learned from my family independence, strength, forgiveness, and compassion. So what did you learn from it? That's the main thing. And also in the spirit world, we're much wiser. And so sometimes we'll choose a lot on our plate, what I call. And our counselor guides will say, do you really want to do this? And we'll say, yeah, I can do this. This is doable. And we get down here and we're like, what did I do? Even though we're not really aware of it, But yeah, otherwise it makes no sense why, because this is what I would ask the church. Why would someone be born with a life of luxury and someone be born poor and starving or, it doesn't make sense to me if God is all love, which I believe God is love. So that answered that question from the church that the church couldn't really understand or explain. If it's God's will, that's all they would say to me. I don't know about you, but I asked questions even when I was younger. So I kind of knew something was not right there. Let's put it that way.
I just didn't buy a lot of the stuff that didn't make sense to me. I was like, whatever. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But that doesn't make sense to me, even as a child. And so I understand what you're talking about. So what about living multiple lifetimes concurrently? Have you done any digging into that?
I haven't seen that in my work, but I'm open to that. I'm not 100% sure, but why not? There is no time, right? So it's really hard for the human mind to understand. And that's what, when I have people in the subconscious, sometimes they'll say they're not ready for the information. So I think sometimes we're not ready for the information. So because it's too hard for the human brain to comprehend. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And where I go with that, Karen, is I don't know the exact answer. My spirit guides and lots of deceased loved ones tell me yes. And lots of deceased loved ones of my clients. I mean, the answer that I get across the board is yes, we live multiple lifetimes concurrently. And that makes my human brain want to explode because I don't understand it. Where I go with it is it's feasible. Do I really understand it? No. Am I supposed to understand it? Probably not. Will I understand it when I get back to heaven? Absolutely.
Yeah. We kind of drink from what do they call the water of forgetfulness when we come down here. So Socrates actually said that. I think it was the fountain of forgetfulness or something like that. Yeah, back in Socrates' times, he talked about that, other lives. And the interlives too. Yeah, we didn't learn that in college, did we?
No. Yeah, we didn't. And spirits and all this woo-woo stuff is in all the holy texts. It's in all of the great literature. You talk about Socrates. It's in Plato. It's in Shakespeare. My gosh, look at Dickens. The spirits of Christmases past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm. There's quite a few. Yeah. Henry Ford, Benjamin Franklin. You can look up all these quotes of all these people, famous people that talk about other lives.
Really? I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, yeah. There's
what did they say?
They talk about that. I think it was Jack London or someone talks about that he lived another life. I can't remember. You'll have to look it up. Sorry, but I don't have my quotes with me. But there's just look up quotes by people about reincarnation and you'll find them. That's how I did. I mean, it wasn't very easy. But Henry Ford even, yeah. So, yeah, most of the great thinkers, Einstein even. I think Einstein wrote about it too. So, I tell people we're not alone. We have great thinkers that were saying the same thing.
You referred to your mom hearing a tape of you recalling a past life where you sounded like a child. Was that your first past life experience? And if not, tell us about that one and then tell us about the first one that you had as well, please.
Okay. Let me say something. I'm not judging anybody, but he did it differently than I do it, where he took me to multiple lifetimes, kind of, which I don't do. I usually do 2 lifetimes or 3, depending on the client. So, because my guides will tell me. So anyway, I was a child in Nazi Germany. I was not in the concentration camp. I was in a building, and they put us all in the building, and they threw fire into the building. So I was calling my mother when in
And
the
you are a
tape.
Jewish child?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had several people, well, probably about 15 people from the Holocaust. I've had Nazis. I've had people who tried to get out of not the concentration camp and things like that. But the interesting thing was he did not finish it. And what I do is after the past life experience, I take you to the life review. We all have a review of our lifetimes, and that's where the healing comes through. Okay. So, what did you learn in that life that can help you in this life? What do you need to release? What you need to bring forward? Sometimes gifts or whatever. I'll take them to that. So, I also do quantum healing hypnosis. Have you heard of that with Dolores Cannon? Okay, so when
Please
I did,
explain it to our listeners and people that are watching us.
Okay, we have that inner knowing, right? But we have this, what I call a higher self, the true self, which is some people can access, but some people need help. I kind of need help. Sometimes I access it, but it's rare. Where I take you in a deep state of hypnosis after 2 past lives. And then I ask the higher self to come through. That's where there's no ego or personality. It's your true self. So then they bring questions and then I answer those questions. I'm sorry, the subconscious answers the questions. I ask the questions to them. So you can ask any question. So with no ego or personality, it's the truth, really, basically the truth. And Dolores Cannon, I went to training with her before she passed. So it's a very powerful session, but people have to be ready for that because you're going to that highest level that can be reached. And there are levels of the subconscious too, which I found. So I always ask for the highest level because some people give more worldly information as well, about the world and what's going to happen and things like that. And then some people just want personal information. So most people want personal. So you can do healing work within that too as well. So physical and emotional. And, you can ask why you chose your parents and those kinds of questions. So it's a very powerful session. So I also do life between life, where you go in between lives. And it's so interesting. The near-death experience people, they have similar things, except I take them a little deeper because there's places of learning and you go before your counsel and things like that. So I mentioned that because I did that in training with Life Between Life. And I found out that since the man didn't finish it, I was not a victim. He told me I was a victim, but there are no victims. Okay, I've learned that, first of all, because we choose it, right? So my counsel told me about that lifetime, because that was my most recent lifetime, that I chose to come to help those in the room find their way home, because they would follow a child. So I can't make this up. So it gave me great sense of peace, like for major things that happen, like 9/11, that there's always a soul leading the souls to, see, I'm getting chills. So yeah, thanks, guides. There's always a soul that guides people. So so it was really beautiful. So I saw it so differently. Have you ever heard that before, that there are souls that help mass killings or med?
Yeah, I do what I call the 12 phases of transition when somebody's dying. And it's how they're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets. And I call those people the Welcome to Heaven Committee. Do you remember the old welcome wagon ladies? When you'd move into a neighborhood and they'd show up with a basket of cookies or brownies or something. And yes, I always see that there are angels and other souls, other spirits, I call them spirit souls, same thing, that are present. And when I am with a spirit that someone would call perhaps a ghost that is living one foot in the spirit world and one foot in our human world, oftentimes there will be another spirit of a loved one that will come help bring them into the light. And so, yes, I know what you're talking about with that. It's really interesting. I want to hear more about your counsel and if you think all of us have spirit guides and how they look to you and what's the setup. Is it like being in a courtroom? Is it like being in a school lecture hall? What is it? How does it seem to you?
Most people, because we need symbols, and they told me that I need visuals because I'm very visual. I'm a visual. Like I see past lives like a movie. Some people don't necessarily see their past life. They feel it or have a knowing. So they might not see anything. But everybody wants to see. So sometimes I have difficulty saying it's okay. What are you feeling or sensing? You know, you're not going to see anything. You've got to go with that. So, so we're all, the council is usually between 6 to 12. It can be more, it can be less. It doesn't really matter. So usually they say they see him like in a table, or some people just don't see a table. You know what I mean? So it's up to that soul. They want you to feel comfortable. There is no judgment. Okay. No judgment. There's just,
and that's a big shift from what we're taught in religions and cultures, because it's all about the judgment.
Right. So when I saw the council, they were kind of people, I tell people it's kind of funny. I saw Glenda the Good Witch. I saw, I think they were messing with me personally, but I saw an Egyptian person and an Indian and somebody else. I can't remember. I think it was the straw man in the Wizard of Oz. But anyway, so then they started laughing because they have a great sense of humor. And they said, we're all energy. And then they went into beautiful lights. So they're all energy. We're all energy. So we're all lights. So, but when we transition, like if we believe in Jesus, Jesus will show up for us. If we believe in Muhammad, he'll show up. If we believe in Buddha, he might show up. So they want us to feel comfortable, right? Does that make sense to you? So when we transition.
Yeah. It's my experience as well.
Yeah. I think I've heard that from psychics too. So I also had an experience where I'd never had this happen where, I usually say, what are you feeling or sensing after they die? And they'll tell me they feel lifting, they see the light. Okay. And sometimes the one one guy said, I'm staying. And I said, what do you mean you're staying? But it's time to go to the light. Kind of. And so he says, no, this is my home. He was an architect. So he was staying. So I said, well, how long do you stay? And he said, 7 years. And I said, but it's time to go now. So we went. But I never had anyone else say that they stayed. Now, sometimes they have a little bit of time to transition, which they tell me, but not 7 years or so. So I asked him if he was a ghost, and he said, yeah.
Wow. The ghosts are so much fun, Karen, because, and that sounds like an oxymoron because, we've all been taught that ghosts are really scary and they can harm you, which is nonsense. That's just to sell movies, and books. But ghosts, when we talk with them, we can get information about them that we can validate and corroborate with historic documents like deeds and census reports and addresses, in the census of John Smith, who's still in this house, and the current family can feel him and all of that, which is fun to be able to corroborate that information. The back to your counsel, is Glenda the Good Witch on your counsel, or you're just using that as an example of a spirit you've seen?
She showed up. She showed up like that to me, but then they said that you needed a visual, so we gave you visuals, but we're all light, and then they went into beautiful colors. Okay, But a lot of people see people in robes. I did see somebody in a robe, I think. But that's their symbol. Again, whatever your symbol is. In heaven, they give us symbols. And then when we reach a certain level, then we're all light in spirit, we're energy. Yeah. So
I see spirit guides and all the time, and they show up as a version of Dumbledore from the Harry Potter movies or Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings movies. And they look like old men, like picture Father Time. And they got white robes on and, long hair, a long white beard. But then when we talk to them, then they morph into what they looked like in the lifetime that corresponds with what they're advising the person in this lifetime. And then we'll get their name and we'll get where they were and, what year they lived and things like that. Again, a lot of it we can corroborate with historic documents. So that's really fun to do that.
Well, you talked about verifying information. Some of my clients have verified the information that they were that person. Or that they verified the clothing, which is really interesting, and the time frame, So, and sometimes we can't. I mean, if we go way back, you're not going to verify unless you're a famous person. And that's why I tell people, most people live ordinary lives. They're not famous,
Right.
Of course, my book about Jesus, Yeshua, is famous. So, and I've only had maybe one or two famous people, or I've had people work for famous people, kings and queens or something like that, but not a whole lot. Yeah. And I've been doing it.
Have you read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich?
No.
He talks about having a council of advisors in the spirit world, and it was written in the 1930s, and it's considered to be one of the premier self-help books that have ever been written. And he talks about these, captains of industry that were his advisors. And I have seen that with clients where I normally will see spirit guides and they travel kind of in a horseshoe pattern when I get them on my radar around the person. And then we'll go to each individual one. It's always 7 is the number that shows up initially, and 7 is spiritual perfection in the Bible. So I find that interesting. But I've seen these spirit guides in different situations with different clients, where one guy in particular who was a CEO of a pretty big company and it was publicly traded. Well, Henry Ford and Sam Walton and all these other, big captains of industry were part of his council, part of his spirit guides. And one of them was Mary Kay Ash, Mary Kay, the pink Cadillac, Mary Kay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, Mary Kay Ash. And I said, she was brilliant. I mean, she was so creative. Look what she created from nothing.
Yeah.
And look at how she was able to mobilize this army of women to be able to empower themselves with money. So our spirit guides and our council to which you're referring in heaven, are they the same thing? Are they different, do you think?
They're different. Yeah, they're different.
They're different. How so?
The council is a group called the Wise Ones or whatever. They never had lives on Earth, okay? And where the guides did. And I think the guides can change according to what you do, right? Like, I was a teacher, so I had a teacher guide. And now what I do, I have a guide that probably did past lives or hypnosis. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me. But I just know, I don't know the guide's name, but I just feel it or I hear it because I'm clairaudience as well. So I know they're there. And my angels, I'm always connected to angels. So, But the council is different. And I think it can change as you change as well, as you become more spiritually evolved. Let's put it that way. Okay. Spiritually aware. But I'm not sure about that, but that's my feeling, our guides, and you can have many guides. We also have what I call a master guide, right? some people call it a guardian angel, but they follow us through birth, through our death, right? Yeah. Do you feel that too?
I do. It's been my experience that we keep the same guardian angel throughout all of our lifetimes. And our guides have, to your point, lived human lives. That's been my experience. And they're different energy than the angels. It's like comparing a schnauzer to a daffodil. It's a different species, if you will. But that our guides do change depending on what's happening in our lives and what we're focused on exploring and experiencing. What's your take on when we come in with things that we want to explore and experience in this incarnation? And how does that come in with free will? Is it something that's a very generic plan, and then our free will allows us to choose how we're going to explore that plan? What's your take on all of that?
I'm not 100% sure about the free will. I know we have free will, but a client was in the subconscious and explained it, that there's like a blueprint that we come in with. And maybe we won't do as much about what we were supposed to do, but we do a portion of it. So we have free will, or eventually we get there. It might take us longer, but we'll eventually get to where we need to go. But if we're totally off the path, then things start to happen that aren't good for us, kind of. Then we kind of like things, I don't know. So free will is, we do have free will. And we also have free will in the interlife, because like I said, we go before our council and we say we want to learn this and that. They're saying, well, you might want to do it differently. But we say, no, I can do this.
That's a really good point. For free will in heaven when we're designing what our next lifetime's going to be.
Yeah, right. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Because I've had people say that, you might want to do it this way, So, but then, it's our decision. I think we've been given free will, because you hear people with horoscopes, they say, they on their horoscope sign that they could be really, really wonderful, but then they choose the opposite way. So, maybe sometimes we choose not the best way for us. So I don't know. I'm not real sure about free will there, but that's my experience.
I have found with many, many clients that when we're doing a past life, I call it a past life scan. I don't hypnotize. It's like I'm walking into a scene in a movie, and then I get where it was, when it was, their name, what was happening. But there's always a semblance of something in that past life that resonates with something that's happening in their current life. Have you found that to be the case?
Oh, yes. We have patterns. Okay. It's like, I'll explain this. I had a client that his child, she initially was a woman in this life, and she was a woman in that life, right? But she's a man. No, she's a man in this life. Sorry. Anyway, so she was watching the child or something, and then did something, and the child went in the pond and drowned. So she never got over it in that lifetime. She was depressed and just never moved forward with it. Okay. So in this life, he lost a child at childbirth. And so he was devastated totally, because he's remembering that he had this other, it's like our soul remembers, but we don't understand the connection. And so he was very, very protective of his children in this life. So people who have lost children or loved ones are very protective in this life of the family member. Like if they lost a child, then they're very protective of children. Does that make sense? So also relationships, just like in this life, they choose the wrong person all the time, and they keep choosing the wrong person. Well, they did that in past life. I found depression comes in from past lives as well. Usually what they will show them is if you don't do something about the depression, this is your life before, which didn't turn out real well. And so you need to kind of change that. So, yeah, everything is kind of related in a lot of ways. Also, fears and phobia. I had a fear of water. I drowned 3 times. I had a fear of public speaking because I was judged as a witch, of course. So what can I say?
I think most of us were. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I was in Europe, though. But I wrote a report in 4th grade about Salem witchcraft trials. And so, so I tell people if you're drawn to a part of history, a country or a people's, then you've probably been there. Or a movie, because I told the therapist, I said, well, I read this report, so I probably, was making it up. He said, no, you're not making it up. And so I wasn't making it up. No, nobody makes it up. That's a lot of people think they're making it up for some reason, but it's all within us. We all have it. We're like a big computer. We have it all. Sometimes you need help getting access it. Now, some people can actually feel things when they go to a place. I don't know if you have that feeling. I do when I went to Egypt, yeah, and Ireland, a really strong, very spiritual place. And certain places, England, I feel strong. So you have that connection because you have that remembrance of it, right? So
is that the same as deja vu?
It can be, or else you have an ability to kind of know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's 2 different ways. Yeah.
To your point about we've had many lifetimes with the same script, when I'm doing a past life scan, what I call it is I envision myself in this endless hallway, and it has mirrors on either side. It's narrow walls, really tall ceiling. And the mirrors are these big square mirrors, and they're lined up perfectly vertically and horizontally. And I'll ask a question like, does Karen have a past life in which she was a witch or she was a healer that used science, used woo-woo, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the mirrors that correlate with that question will come out from the wall as if they're on a hydraulic arm. And then I'll say, show me the one that correlates the most, and that one will come out the furthest. And then I'll picture myself walking into this scene of a movie, and that's when I get the information. But it's always fascinating to me how many lifetimes, to your point earlier, that you were a witch in multiple lifetimes. And I'm not saying witch like an evil witch. I'm talking about like a healer, an herbalist. I mean, all those people that were practicing those ancient healing techniques were labeled witches.
Yeah.
And burned at the stakes by some of the most well-educated men because they were trying to get the medical community down to the same thing around the world.
Yeah.
They wanted the same thing to be taught. My friend Perdita Finn, who we've had on the show, is really an expert on this stuff. I've learned a lot from her. But anyways, what I'll find is that there will be a semblance of the script. And I equate it, and see if this resonates with you, Karen. I equate it to, we have a script and then we're going to explore it in a bunch of different ways to have a different perspective on the same script. And the analogy I like to use is think of Hamlet. How many times has Hamlet been performed since Shakespeare wrote it in 1602? Well, who knows? But certainly, what year was it performed? In what language? Where? By whom? Who was the customer? Who was the director? All those different variables are going to give us a different perspective of the same script. And that's been my experience, that's how we go through multiple lifetimes, and we'll see different versions of a similar or the same script. Have you experienced the same thing?
Oh, yeah. A lot of times, yeah. They'll come through and they'll just say, well, this is like my lifetime in this life. I'm like, yeah, but your soul's ready to move forward. Because I think when the soul was ready to release all that, they come to me, or else they can release it however through mediums or however. So my soul said it was time to release that fear of speaking in public, because look what I'm doing here. Um, because I was judged, and I was judged probably more than once because it was so strong. I got anxious and anxiety issues and stuff like that from just getting in front of people. I didn't know how to do that because it was so traumatic. I felt judged all the time. So, and a lot of people are fearful of heights. They probably fallen or something happened, or bridges. Maybe they died on a bridge or something. So I asked the subconscious why some people carry these issues with them and some people are able to not. Because I think in the spirit world, we are kind of cleansed of some of the stuff, but evidently they said it's up to the soul. So if the soul needs more experience in that, then they will choose to do that. So that's where we have free will to choose. So, because when I do forgiveness, I tell people, forgive everybody. Forgive the soul of the person, not the deed, because that's a heavy, heavy burden. And I've had some people that killed people, and they said, I don't need to forgive myself. So they've already released that probably prior to that. So, yeah. So, and forgiving self is the hardest thing to do for some people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then back to that, there's no judgment in the spirit world, which is hard for most of us to try and grasp because we've been so ensconced in the right or wrong, good or bad, which I believe has its place in our human existence. We can't go around killing each other because nobody would be left. So, and that's how we create. When we know what we don't want, it helps us create what we do want. But I have heard that just countless times about in spirit, there is no judgment. And they look at every situation that we find ourselves in, even if it's a horrific thing, like when you were a child during the Nazi Germany situation. They look at that as, what I've been told by countless spirits is, ooh, interesting. What's Karen going to create out of this? What's she going to choose to do? How's she going to do it? And we create out of that. Now, is that easy for our human minds to understand? Heavens, no, it's not easy. But that's just what I've been told many, many times. Do you agree with that? Have you been told the same thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we choose the contract. It's a contract. Yeah, that's what they call it. So yeah, we choose. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense to us in the human mind. Like I said, the clients sometimes why would I choose this? So, but we have to look at what we're learning from it and step back. That's what I have to do sometimes in a situation. What am I learning from this? Why is this coming to me? So, and also our energy makes a difference. So if you come with your energy of fear and anger, you're going to attract those people with that kind of energy.
Say more about that. The law of attraction and how energy attracts other energy. And because I say that to people and they go, it just can't be that simple. Well, it really is. But
it is.
Yeah. So say more about that.
Well, since I've been doing this work, I feel energies more and more. So, you can sense the energy of someone. If you're in that mode of anger, and judgment and all the negatives, then you're going to attract those people in your life. If you kind of feel happy and joyous with life, I know we have problems, but I'm saying in general, then you're going to attract happy, generous people and loving people. So I think that kind of shows in our political thing. I'm not getting into it, but it kind of does. Or when crowds are angry, more people come and then they get angrier. It just accumulates. But if something beautiful happens, I always said, instead of football games, we should all get together and and pray for peace and love and loving each other, what would that do? What would that resonate with the earth, right? So, yeah, we all have to stay in that positive mode. And the more negative you get, then the more negative people you're going to get in your life, I think, right? And sometimes our families, we do have sometimes negative people in there too. But there are lessons. That's a little different. But and then if you just don't feed into their negativity, then that will help. Because I had a situation with a family member who would talk about everybody all the time and not be nice. And I did not respond at all. I just sat there and just sent love to her. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to do because I didn't respond.
So did she stop? Did she stop with that nonsense?
No, she never stopped what she does, but she she stopped it then. So it was just quiet, So if you feed into that negativity, you're making it more. I don't know who said this, but be aware when you enter a room what your energy is, or when you enter a space. Yeah. So when I was in teaching, I was I always came with happy kind of feelings, and because I knew I was working with children, especially with problems, because I was a special ed teacher. So this one teacher said, "Why are you so happy?" And I'm like, I didn't know how to respond to her, because if she didn't know that to be happy with what you do, then what is, how do you respond to somebody like that? I just said, "I'm just happy. It's okay." I don't know. So I'm sure people know that. And there are people that drain us, our energy. So we need to let go of those people too. Love them from afar, maybe. I've had several experiences of that. I just had to let go of the friendship. Do you understand that?
How do you do that from a practical and a kindness standpoint? If we have somebody in our lives that just wears us out, what has been your experience of a way that you have found is something that worked well for you to let that relationship go? Did you tell them, "I can't be in a relationship with you anymore"? Did you just stop calling them back? How did you work that?
Yeah, because a lot of times they wouldn't call back. So I think they kind of knew. I think we kind of know when it's ending. I did have a dream where this one person that was supposedly a friend, but not a friend, that kind of thing, in my dream. And I just said, "I love you, but I can't be with you as a friend. You're not, So you just send them love. And I've found that some people just back away from you too. And that's okay. I'm okay with that anymore. I've had friends that never called you back or whatever after you've known them for years. I don't know if it's because of my energy changing or what's going on, but it's okay. It's all right. I don't worry about that, because if people are supposed to be in my life, they'll be in there. That's the way I look at it.
I agree with you on that. I think that our energy changes based on what we're interested in and pursuing and experiencing in our lives. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's similar to, you had friends perhaps in grade school with whom you're not in touch now, and perhaps high school and college, and when your kids are little, and your priorities change, and your experiences and what you want to explore change. And so you kind of find your new tribe as you go. And some of those stay with you, some of those originals. I have several girlfriends that have been my friends since I was 10.
Yeah, me too.
And we're still dear friends, and then added more along the way. And when some of those fall off, I have that now. It bothered me before, frankly. I thought, what's going on with this? And, trying to, I'd leave a message and wouldn't get a call back. And it hurt my feelings. And then I thought, okay, we're just at different places in our lives. And we had a wonderful time together. And if If we reconnect, great. If not, I got an email, Karen, from somebody that I hadn't talked to in, oh my gosh, probably 30 years, who was a dear friend when I was in my 20s. And I was so thrilled. And we parted, and I actually ended the relationship because I felt betrayed. And then when she contacted me 30 years later, I was so thrilled to hear from her and so thrilled that she found me, and we emailed back and forth a little bit. I don't imagine she's going to come back into my life in any big way, but boy, was that a shift over where I was 30 years ago. I think I've evolved, let's hope, in the last 30 years, but also a place of, oh gosh, how fun to hear from somebody who meant so much to me in the past, even though we parted in a less than optimal way. Have you experienced that as well?
No, but I do have friends. I have one friend that I've known since elementary school, actually. And we kind of drifted away, but then we came back together. I guess that's similar in our adult life, because I had moved away to Ohio and then I came back to Maryland later. And we're still really close friends. But she's the only one from that time frame. But I've had other people that I'm still close to that don't necessarily believe the same way, but they're accepting of who I am. And to me, that's the most important thing. They don't have to believe in what I believe in. Just accept, each other the way we are, So, and some of them I can talk about it and some of them I can't. So, I just don't talk to them about it. But they know what I do.
You're in Maryland. You're in Maryland and you're not that far from the epicenter in America of all that political stuff. And I think too that with the politics, I always go to the place of everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And how boring would life be if everybody thought the same? Nothing would be created. That's how we create new things and how humanity moves forward. So people get so wound up about politics and whatever. And I just say, yeah, if it works for you, great. This works for me or it doesn't work for me, but let's have a conversation about it. And I find that it's really interesting with that. How close are you to DC?
About an hour and a half, depending on. It can be an hour, but traffic's bad. It's usually an hour and a half to DC. So I'm like in the middle. I'm in the middle. I'm in northern Maryland, so I'm close to Philadelphia too, an hour and a half away, and New York 4 hours. Virginia. So I'm like right in the middle of things. So,
well, I know that there are a lot of people, I would imagine that work in government that are living in your area just because it's so expensive to live in DC that, they've got to live out either in Virginia or Maryland just because they can't afford to live in DC on a government salary. So I would think you run into that as well. Let's go back to the Akashic Records for a second. Do you have a feeling about that? Do you have a sense of what that is? And if so, I'd love to hear your take on the Akashic Records. And is that what you're accessing when you're accessing people's past lives?
I think that's what you're doing. They're accessing their own lives. Okay, so they're going into hypnosis. So, if I've had experience with the Akashic Records, because when I do Life Between Life, I'll ask them if they want to go to the Akashic Records. So then we go to the Akashic Records. Now, the Akashic Records is, again, our symbol. Usually, the keeper of the records is an old man with a beard and a robe. But I had a client,
like Dumbledore.
I had a client that said their keeper was a woman. So I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah. So some people see it as a book. Some people see scrolls. Some people just have a knowing. So it's an etheric place. It's a place without walls and ceilings and things. It's you can't really describe it because we have our own symbols for it. But most people see it as a library, right? And it's interesting the way you see it, because you're going to the Akashic Records. Yeah. So I had somebody that had a book, the book of their life or whatever. And so it would come alive in the book. I thought that was interesting. So it would come alive. Now, if they're not to know something, they'll say the book is closed. So that's good.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They'll say the book is closed at this time, or else the keeper will give them a book and nothing will come out of it or whatever. When I did the Akashic Records, I did see like a Dumbledore kind of guy. And this was years ago. And I got my soul name, which was Lamaria, which is that place. So I was like, okay, it's fun. But I saw it in gold on the book. So, I'm a very visual person. So they gave me a book. But it's really not a book. It's just in the ether. I don't know how to explain it. Does that make sense? It's there.
Yeah. That's how spirit is sending you a symbol of something that is just pure energy. And it's a way for you to visualize it and access it from our human perspective and have it make sense to us. So if I was going to do a past life scan on you, I would be in the Karen hallway, because that's all those mirrors are all your lifetimes, that go. And then I could be in the Sylvia or the Henry hallway or whatever. The other thing about the book that's interesting to me, and I've seen this many times, and I'd love to hear what you think about it. Back to Dumbledore, he has this huge book that's about this thick in his office in Hogwarts. And I've seen that many times where the book, and I think I probably saw it in one of the Harry Potter movies, where the pages just turn really fast on their own. And that symbolizes not only the person's lives and experiences and stuff, but I've had spirits tell me that they access this book, and I call it the Book of Wisdom. And they say, anything that we want to know, I know it instantly. And then they'll show me this book and it'll be in a nanosecond. All the pages have turned and they've just got all the information with that. Have you experienced anything like that where spirit they just all have access to all the universal intelligence and
but
everything?
If they're ready for it. They have to be ready for it because, like I said, some people will get information about a past life, because I'll ask them, do you need to go have the keeper show you the past life? And they'll turn the pages or get another scroll or whatever. So to access that. So yeah, it's again, it's up to the soul to, what it's ready for. Because, I tell people you can't expect somebody in kindergarten to understand college material, it's like, so, or, if you're in high school and it's college material, you might not get it either. So, because I've grown too spiritually with spiritual knowledge that 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had, that I've been aware of it. I'm sure it was always there, but, that's like when I read the book, it was like a door opened up, that had been closed. That's the best way to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A couple more questions as we're winding down here. Walk us through what your process is. I'm coming to see you as a client. What do we do? How do you walk me through what you're offering as far as your services go?
Okay, first of all, I only do one-on-one. I don't do on the video. Dolores Cannon suggested us not to do that. And I understand that now because you're in hypnosis and you need to feel safe. So when a client comes to me, we have a pre-talk. So I kind of get to know them, ask them why they want this, why they want to do what they expect from it. If there are any fears about it, because some people are a little afraid or nervous. I said, it's okay, because I have to remember my first time. I was like, what's going to happen here? And so, and I try to get them at ease, Now, some people will come in and say, I can't go into hypnosis. I said, you need to change the way you say that. You say, I am going into hypnosis, it's, and be a positive statement instead of a negative. So, and then I have a recliner, and I record the information. It's really important. I've heard some clients say that it wasn't recorded because it's very important to listen to it later for healing and understanding. And you might not remember everything. So then I ask them to close their eyes, and then I do deep breathing. And then I do what I call deepening, where I get you deep in hypnosis. So then the last part of deepening is you're on a cloud and you're floating to a past life. So when they come down off the cloud very gently, I'll ask them what are they feeling or sensing? And so they will tell me. Now, sometimes I have to start it up a little bit, like what's on your feet? What are you wearing? What does it feel like? If they're feeling people, I'll say, what do you feel on your feet? If they see things, I'll say, what type of footwear are you wearing? Then we go up the body and that kind of thing. So we kind of also what type of dwelling, because that kind of tells them what time frame they're in. And also it helps them get deeper into hypnosis, because we're not really getting into the meat of why they went to that lifetime. So then if they don't start telling me about that lifetime and what I need to know to help them to kind of release whatever later on, I'll ask them to go to significant events in that lifetime, just like we have important events in this lifetime. So, and then when I feel it's kind of completed, I'll ask them to, again, go to the death scene. And what are you experiencing, sensing? And they'll tell me. And then I ask them to go to the life review. And that's where we release whatever needs to be released from that lifetime, either physical, emotional, relationships, whatever, and forgiveness, which is really important. So, and what did you learn from that lifetime? And then I'll take them to another lifetime. This is the past life experience. Now, the quantum healing is different, because after the past life experiences, I take them and ask the subconscious to come through. And then I'll ask them questions, and then I'll ask their questions too. And sometimes when they bring questions, there's more questions within that question, So I'll ask the subconscious. And the life between life is different, because you're going in the spirit world, and you're meeting your soul group. We all have a group of souls that we come with, and they're all happy to see us usually. And we go before the council, and we don't just sit around with harps, like in the movies. We do things. And some people are in training to be spirit guides. I've had a couple of people that were in training for the next life to be a spirit guide. Yeah. They're in training for this life to be a spirit guide. Yeah. So does that make sense, or do I need to explain more?
It does. No, it was great. What do you call it? You ask what do you call it? The self or the subconscious self, or what's the term? Subconscious self.
People know it as the higher self, okay?
Or the spirit. Is that their spirit?
It's the essence of who we are, basically. Okay, this is just a facade. Our personality and ego is not the same. It's like I tell people, I had a depth experience where my soul was out of the body, but the body was dying. Does that make sense? So it's your soul. I don't, they're just words, and they make fun of me. They said, you humans need words. They'll say that to me. I'm like, yeah, we need words. Sorry. It's hard to explain. It's just that true self. Let's put it that way. It's
okay. The essence. Yeah, I would call that the spirit.
Yeah.
The everlasting part of us.
Yes, right. The one that goes on, the energy. We're all energy, right? So we just have different terms for it. Like some people like the higher self, and Edgar Cayce talks about the super subconscious. And I think that's where we're really going, to the super subconscious when we do the quantum healing, because that's a real high level of being. Yeah. And so there's no emotion that connected when you do that too. So, and I can tell when sometimes the conscious mind wants to come in, so I'll tell it, you can't come in. It's like, You need to leave now. You can come back later. So it thinks it's protecting us, I guess. So, but have you ever had anyone tell you something that was way beyond their knowledge, and you're like, where'd that come from? Did you ever have that happen?
Children.
Okay. Because I had that happen a couple times to me. Yeah. Where someone's subconscious was giving me an affirmation for a past life and they didn't even know it. Yeah.
How do your clients benefit from a session with you?
Well, they heal what they need to heal. Of course, I tell them it's up to them to do the work. Do you see what? And to believe that they heal themselves physically or emotionally. But I get emails from people all the time about how it helped them. I had one girl said, "You changed my life." And I said, "No, you changed your life, because you did it. You did the work. I was just the vessel to help you get there." So, and it healed. That's why I was so connected to it, because it helped me so much in so many different ways, spiritually, emotionally, and I think even some people just need to know that their soul is eternal too, that they carry on. And so they might not have as much information, but that as someone who's ready for the healing of that, but most people heal. Yeah, I'd say. There's some people that just refuse to believe it afterwards, and that's okay. That's very rare, but, and most people come, and I think great majority are healed or in some way healed, and they're ready to move forward. And also, I think it helps them spiritually to look more for more information and more training, more reading. And I get a lot of people that are psychic that don't believe they're psychic. A lot of people, and I'm like, in this world today, you don't know. It's like they're afraid of it, even today,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you find that? I'm sure you pick up people who are psychic all the time that aren't using it or are healers.
Yeah. Everybody is. Everybody has the ability, and it's just a matter of developing and enhancing it. I agree. And I agree with you. I am of the same mindset that nobody heals anybody else. No doctor or medical provider or healer or past life regression hypnotist or whomever. We heal ourselves, and we are helping them facilitate healing themselves. And I use analogies a lot, Karen, and my analogy for that is, if you have surgery, at the end of the procedure, the surgeon's going to close your incision with sutures and staples, yet the surgeon isn't going to make your skin grow back. You're going to make your own skin grow back. And that's how this works, whether it be emotional or relationship or health related. I think we all, I believe, it's been my experience, we all heal ourselves. One last question for you. Why do we incarnate?
To learn. And to experience and to experience life as a human being. We choose that, right? But there's lessons there as well. So that's why we decide to reincarnate. We don't have to. We can stay in the spirit world, but they say it's the fastest way to learn. That's what I've been told. Is the earth experience is the fastest way. So we'll see.
You're such a delight, my girl, number one. And number two, what a fun conversation. We kind of went all over the map on this stuff. And it's always fun for me to compare notes with colleagues, regardless of if you're just focused in one area or the other, because I think for the most part, we're all saying the same thing. We're all getting the same guidance. And we approach it in different ways simply because different people, it helps them to do it perhaps in a technique that you're using versus a technique that I'm using. And that's what makes it so interesting is for people to explore what resonates with them. And we offer a lot of, it's kind of like you go into the ice cream store, you can choose a bunch of different flavors. We're all different flavors of the same thing, right? So, okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. How can people learn more about you and your work?
Okay, they can go on my site. I got a new website after 15 years, I guess. It's Willis Life Journeys with the S at .com. And then, or else you can email me at willislifejourneys@yahoo.com.
Okay. And we'll have all that information in the show notes.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. You bet.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's great talking to you.
You bet. Everybody sending you lots of love from Sweet Home, Alabama. What? And from Maryland, too, where Karen is.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.